No, go from the beginning. Everybody likes the
About it
music.
from the beginning.
It's pretty good music.
Are we gonna have this at your party?
Oh yeah. I'm gonna send that to the band.
You need to send it to the band.
Welcome to episode número
11.
11.
Yes.
Uno. That's double one for everybody that speaks Spanish. So this episode actually, Allison, we're going government.
We're going rogue.
Yeah, no, rogue. You were going rogue. No.
We're going rogue. We're going over 30 minutes on this episode.
Well, not us, our guest.
Our
guest, really, we had so much to talk about. She had so much information. I think it was one of the most informative episodes. We've had several informative episodes.
I could have talked with her for another hour. I mean, it was very interesting.
Actually, I did after you left. No, for real, it's government. You know, we got a little glimpse about how our local government works.
Yes,
and
it was
how,
very interesting.
And how our local government manages all the situation and how the local government is actually growing too.
I learned a lot.
Yes, me too. Now, I don't want to get into politics, obviously. We are always staying away from politics. But I do want to say something about local government. And what I want to say is that you know that I'm from Venezuela, right?
Yes.
And socialism really made my country, my ex-country, go into the place that it is right now, which is in a pretty bad place for all the people living in there.
Right, which is why you left.
Correct, exactly. I'm a true believer that the greatest strength in a country is both the middle class and local governments. You know, a lot of people ask me, well, man, how are we going to stop the United States going towards socialism? How are we going to stop the United States? Who do you think will prevent to the United States follow the steps that Venezuela had?
Right.
Yeah. And I didn't believe that it's going to be just one person, just one magic person, just one magic savior, call it Biden, Trump, Obama, whatever you want to call him. It's not going to go that way, It's going to go by strengthening our middle class, making the middle class of the United States strongest middle class in the world as it was at one point, and participating and being involved in local government.
Yes. I think getting involved is huge because we can all sit back at the end of the day and complain about the way things are. But until you're willing to step up and actually give of your time and your service, then you don't have a lot to complain about. And it is a thankless job being in local government.
It is. You can never please everybody.
You can't please everybody. You don't get paid for it.
that was not surprising, but it always is eye-opening when you listen to it, because
Right.
you understand that those positions at that level are voluntary positions, but then when she goes and talks about how much time she devotes, how much energy it sucks out of her, because you know what sucks energy out of you?
People.
And people complaining about things.
Yes.
And especially if you really want to solve people problems, that sucks a lot of energy out of her. So I really tip my hat to her. We should all support her in a way that we encourage people like Charli Wessinger, that they have an idea, they have a way of thinking. We don't necessarily have to agree with everything that she says or everything that she thinks, but you know what? She's out there.
So you just mentioned her. I don't think we've told them
Oops.
who we interviewed today. The cat's out of the bag.
Well, yeah. Her name is Charli Wessinger. She is a council member of the Lexington
County Council.
Yes, exactly. She's been doing this for almost 3 years.
Yes, this is her first term, and she's in her third year.
Yeah, and we also we recorded obviously that interview before we're recording this, so we're gonna give you a heads up. Okay, yes. And the heads up is that it's a little bit longer of an interview. So for a first time ever, it's been like a first time ever every single episode.
Yeah.
For the first time ever, we're going to pass
30 minutes.
The 30 minutes.
We could not condense it into 30 minutes, so might be a two-part listening for you, but it is very informative, answers a lot of questions about the development surrounding Chapin and Irmo.
How to participate.
How to get involved in your local government, and take a listen, see what you think.
Listen, there are openings out there, you know, and I particularly am very interested in one of them. I'm not going to tell you which one. I'm not going to jinx it.
Maybe we should vote on it and see which one we think Carlos is interested in.
You know, maybe down the road, I've been thinking of it. It gets so tough, you know, when the fact that you cannot please everybody, and you have to understand that, and you have to come to terms. You're not going to solve everybody's problems, and whatever you do, there's always going to be somebody that doesn't agree to what you're doing or what you're doing, or completely doesn't understand why. Kind of like what you do for a living, right? Real estate.
Yes.
If anything, just fasten your seatbelt. There is a lot of information coming on in this interview. Really, really, really good. And hopefully that helps people, you know, move that discussion from Washington, D.C., which is, you know, miles away, and nobody really cares about what you have to say about Washington. Yeah, nobody really cares about what you have to say about Washington. But
they do care about what's happening locally and you know, impacting them every single day.
All right, here you go. Charli Wessinger, enjoy that interview. We are with Charli Wessinger.
Yes.
Hi, Charli. Do you know that your name is actually Carlos in English?
Really?
Yep.
How about that?
Oh, well, now we've got this.
Now
Now you have something in common.
In my Spanish class in high school, Miss Murphy, I don't know if you guys had her whenever you were here.
Murphy?
Miss Murphy.
Oh, okay.
My Spanish name was Claire. So that's what we use. I'm not a Claire. So not a Claire.
I had a nickname of Charlie when I was a kid because I was a little blonde kid growing up in Venezuela, you know. So Charlie is an American English way to say Carlos. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, thank
it's
you
all right.
for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, Charlie, why don't you tell everybody what your job is in the government right now, and just a little bit of background of yourself as well.
My job in the government is to listen to people and go, oh, that's great. No, I'm joking. So Charli Wessinger, Lexington County Council District 6. So District 6 encompasses all of unincorporated Chapin and a portion of Irmo. They redid the district line, so I used to have across the lake on the Lexington side, which was interesting, but now another council member has that, so I'm more in Irmo and all of Chapin. So my main job is to work with the constituents on issues and problems, and work with staff to help solve those.
What type of issues and problems do you have the ability to not solve, or at least, you know,
facilitate.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to put it. Let's see. This is a typical week, right? So I'll get calls from, hey, Charlie, somebody was over here cutting trees down on the road right of way or beside my house. Can you figure out why they were doing it and what was going on? So then I have to research, is this a state road? Is this a county road? What's going on? Do we have development permits, you know, in place from some development that's going on nearby? So just to help them answer questions, find out why somebody was cutting down trees on their property, which is actually the road right of way, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one thing. Another one is, hey, this new development has gone up and now I've got stormwater flooding that's washing out my driveway. So we've got stormwater issues. And these are all, I say small issues, but they're really not small issues. Because Carlos, if you had a house being built next to you, and however they were developing, or they put in a ditch,
correct,
a drainage ditch, right? But now that water is coming onto your property and it's coming to your house and it's going under your foundation. That's a problem.
That's a big problem.
Right.
And they will be calling you?
And they're calling me.
Oh, wow.
They're going, Charlie, help. I don't know how to fix this. Who do I contact? So then I facilitate that conversation between one of our inspectors or a different department at the county. So like community development would be one that would handle that. So then I have to put them in touch with that. An inspector goes out, looks at different things. Oh yeah, this guy building their house shouldn't have put a ditch here. It wasn't in the plans. It wasn't approved. So then they have to redo things or change things. So
that's a lot of work. I can see everybody left and right. I'm not saying that we live in an imperfect place. Well, actually it is an imperfect place, but a lot of people seem to complain about little things
right
all the time.
yes
So you are the first line of defense.
Yes.
But I never would have thought that.
Me neither.
I know, right?
My next door neighbor put in a pool, which caused all of his runoff to go into my yard and in our stormwater drain, but it was never a thought to call my council member.
Right. And so where that whole facilitating that process goes is whoever put in that pool had to apply for a permit
right
from the county. Whether it's the pool company or a builder or whatever, they have to go to the county to get a permit. In order to get a permit, they have to actually show the plans, so the engineered plans.
Right.
And if there's a retaining wall or a ditch or whatever that's on the plans that doesn't get built, that creates problems, or it wasn't on the plans and it got built that creates a problem,
Right.
that's where they're just like, I'm gonna call Charli.
Yeah.
So, and then I have to facilitate who to get in touch with. We had, I won't specify any development names.
Say it.
For a reason. But we had a development down down the Lexington Highway corridor that did not have a retaining wall on their plans at all behind several houses. And then that homeowner of the property behind that development calls, Charli, they put in a retaining wall, my entire yard is completely flooded, and they cut down my trees. And I was just like, what do you mean? And so we go back and we look, send the inspectors out. Sure enough, that builder cut down trees across the property line.
Oh,
Wow.
Which, people are like, oh, it's just a tree. But, when you have an 80-year-old oak tree that's a big, beautiful shade tree, you can't replace that. And that one particular tree, I guess, had the grandparents' initials carved into it when they were younger. So not only was it just a tree, it was a sentimental tree. So, yeah, there's a ton of calls like that from all over the area, and not just Chapin. I've got them from Irmo. I still get them from the other side of the lake on the Lexington side from when I had that for the first 2 years. And I help people. Just like there might be somebody off Corley Mill Road that used to have me that now has a different council number. They'll call me, relay the information. So me and my council peers work fairly well together.
That is a full-time job.
Yes.
How many hours a week do you dedicate to serving on the council?
Sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's 2. So it ebbs and flows completely across the board. You never know what's going to happen and who's going to pop up with something that you're just like, oh, let's see what's going to happen this week. And I will tell you, there are some weeks that are quiet, and I'm just like, cool, I can actually get my job, my mortgage-paying job done, right?
Which is?
Newberry College. I work for Newberry College. I handle a lot of the online education and educational technology. So I'm pretty busy with traditional faculty, students, online programs. And there's been some weeks I'm like, oh my God, I have to work all weekend, or I have to work at night because of trying to juggle everything.
Go from that to getting into the political world, so to speak?
My predecessor twisted my arm. I hate politics.
Yeah.
I actually got involved. I guess somebody called me a community advocate at one point, and I was like, well, that's probably a better term when the school district was doing some questionable things.
Do you have to be? Are you backed up by any political affiliation, or you can just be independent, just on your own?
So I am registered Republican as far as a party affiliation, but as far as any kind of a group, no. I'm me.
Any support? Any
no.
Sponsorship?
No.
No responsibilities, no ties to that. You're just working for the community on what the rule says and what do you think is best for the community.
Yeah, so. In fact, it's kind of funny, not to talk about the election primaries. It was, almost 3 years ago now, 2.5, 3 years ago. My opponent. Okay. If you were ever to go back and look at the elections campaign disclosures, you can see who all contributes to who across any election, from school board to the governor, right? You can actually look at that from the Ethics Commission page. all of my campaign contributions were like $5 to $50. Some were $500, but they were all from individuals throughout the entire community. I did not have one business, one corporation, or one special entity at all. And if I would have gotten it, I probably would have ripped up the check and sent it back.
So you grew up here, you have a vested interest, and I'm sure it's probably difficult right now with the extreme growth that we're having to
Growth?
So I'm curious as to with the new, and I think they've probably been in place maybe a year now, the Lexington County building requirements, like per acre, how has that affected development that you've seen?
So we did a moratorium on building, which everybody was just like, well, I shouldn't say everybody, some people were like, yay, some people were like, oh my God. You know, so it was a very, I think the majority of the people were okay with it because they understood what we were trying to do.
Right.
So the reason for the moratorium was because we were working on land development codes, we were working on the ordinances, we were doing a comprehensive plan, but some of the developers were just very, very busy. Oh, we got to submit these plans. And then, you know, these multiple hundreds of homes while we were trying to better the ordinances, you know, and better the open space rules, what people were asking for. So we were just like, you know, the only way to actually get this done is to do a moratorium. We are not going to accept any more building permits at all right now. That gives us the 6-month window to iron all this stuff out. Input from all parties, you know, pro and con. And then we put the overlay district in place. We put the overlay district, the labor overlay, that is where it reduces the density, right? So it's roughly 2 homes per acre. That does not specify a half-acre lot. So we don't have a minimum.
So you can have a quarter and a 3/4.
Well, yes, as long as you have a full acre to put 2 homes on.
Correct.
So it's all in the calculation. And this is where people are like, oh my God, they're building on less than a half acre. And I'm like, well, we don't have a minimum lot size. So there's a couple of things to go into play. And this is where I think there's some miscommunication or misunderstanding of what it means. A lot of people are like, oh, it's a half acre minimum lot.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Now, if you have 3/4 of an acre, you can't subdivide it because then it is less. You cannot get 2 homes per acre on a 3/4 acre lot.
It's just math.
So you would just have a 3/4 acre and 1/4.
Yes. So then you wouldn't be able to put the house on the 1/4. You just have to use 3/4. And that will drive property values up as well, which can be a pro, can be a con. Right. So let's say that I had just for easy math, I had a 10-acre tract of land that I wanted to develop, right? I could put 20 homes on it because that comes down to 2 per acre. I can put 20 homes on 10 acres.
Now you can build those 20 homes in 2 acres and have the other 8 acres as a common area.
Correct. So there's some leeway in there, but then there's other ordinances. So there's the 20-18 ordinance that Aaron had started on, that my predecessor started on. 20-18 changes the setback rules. The setback rules are now a 30-foot front offset and 10 feet on the side.
Okay.
The old rules were 10 feet from the front, 5 feet from the side.
So you created more separation in between houses.
So there's more separation and more setback from the road. So, and I know you are familiar with some neighborhoods around. You go riding through there. There's a driveway. There's a sidewalk in the middle of the driveway, and a car cannot park in front of the driveway without parking on the sidewalk because there's just not enough room.
Correct.
Now, Charlie, does that apply to all of Lexington County or just the Lake Murray Overlay District?
The 20-18 is all of Lexington County.
Okay.
And there is a rule with part of 2018 where it is 4 homes per acre across the county.
Okay.
So there's no more of this, you know, sandwiching homes on a postage stamp size, et cetera, et cetera. But again, there's leeways in that of the way it's calculated. So you can still have a small lot,
right?
But it's the way it's calculated.
So just to follow up on that. So there is no way that we will be seeing a condominium building anytime soon in Lexington County.
So
didn't say multifamily.
Yes. So in Lexington County, we have right now where multifamily can only go in on 4 lanes or higher highways. So you have to have a 4-lane road or higher to be
adjacent
multifamily.
adjacent to the property that is going to be a multifamily.
Mm-hmm.
And Columbia is about to be 4 lanes, right? Columbia Avenue.
At least 3 lanes. I think it actually is going to be 5 lanes. Now Columbia Avenue and right around here is that's within the municipality of Chapin.
Okay.
So the municipalities, town of Irmo, town of Chapin, town of Lexington, they have their own rules and regulations they can follow. So when I say 4 lanes or more for apartments, multifamily, I shouldn't say apartments, multifamily, which could be townhouses, which could be condominiums, could be apartments, that is unincorporated Lexington County.
Okay. So I have.
So it sounds like there are plans. Your face. You can't discuss plans.
We've been talking about making some changes to that, or we have housing density rules now in place, right? Lake Marine Overlay District throughout the county. There's housing density rules, no more than X per acre, right? I don't see why we couldn't be a little bit more flexible with multifamily homes of no more than X per acre, even if it is on a 2-lane road or a 4-lane road or a boulevard or something. And I know that some people will be like, oh my God, Charlie, I can't believe you just said that. But if you think about it, you're familiar with Lazy Creek Tap House. Right behind it, and there's 2 new buildings that have popped up. There was a gate across the road for a little while, now there's not.
And there is a subdivision that they're building a bunch of houses
the Haven at St. Peter's.
But you're talking about
I'm talking about the 2
duplexes.
It's a duplex, right? Under today's rules, that would not be allowed because it is a multifamily unit, right? Some people are probably not gonna like me saying this. I don't see anything wrong with a small little duplex like that.
Right.
There's a time and a place for everything, right? There's a need for a number of different things. A small duplex, that's what, 4 units, I think, back there.
It's 4.
It's really.
And they're relatively small. You can't pack a ton of people
Right.
in them.
It's 4 units. You know, it's not like it's 140 kind of a thing. So I think there's a time and a place for things. It's on a 2-lane road, but by today's standards, that wouldn't be allowed. So again, I think that there's room to wiggle in there to allow additional opportunities that make sense.
Okay.
You know? Does that make sense?
It does. Kind of back to the 2 houses per acre, and I kind of want to clarify this because I've been told that there are some developers that are working around that, in that as long as the land they purchase is contiguous to an existing neighborhood, that they don't have to abide by the new guidelines. Is that correct?
No. Because that existing neighborhood would have had their own plans submitted and approved. So when we'll cover it like this, right? I'll try to be as politically correct as I can be. I'm a developer. I come in, I buy 50 acres, right? I want to develop that 50 acres. I might have phase 1, 2, and 3, right? And I have to abide by whatever rules are in place when I submit my plans at that time.
Right.
So let's say flash forward, 10 years goes by, or 7 actually, I think the deadline is 7. 7 years, I'm coming up on 7 years. I haven't started doing anything, but I was approved for X, Y, and Z. That will expire at some point, and I believe it's 5 years, and then you can renew for 2 one-year periods. So I think you have a total of 7 years to actually do something with the plans that you submitted.
Okay.
And if something changes, then you have to abide by whatever new regulations are in place. But the developer submits it as one project, no matter if there's multiple phases.
Okay.
So let's say that I come in here, I develop my 50 acres, I've got it done. And another 50 acres opens up beside it, right? And I'm like, ooh, I can go and do the same thing. You can't.
Okay.
Because those plans were not submitted at the time the other one was submitted, so now that has to abide by whatever the new regulations are.
All right.
And regulations
Thank
could
you
have
for clearing that
changed
Yes.
based on what this guy did beforehand and say, hey, we
Right.
didn't like that, but he was following the rules
Right.
Yeah.
at that moment. That's why
Exactly.
we're changing. And that's where people get confused. Well, why is he allowed to do this and what not?
Right.
One
So-
of the biggest things that I hear about is, the developer came in and cut all the trees. And the county is not doing anything to improve the roads, for example. So those are pretty much, and you probably hear that more than I do.
Two totally different bears.
And those two are the most common complaints that I hear. The trees getting cut off and wildlife getting moving in, and not enough roads and the traffic just going out of control.
Right. So there's two worlds of that, right? And I'm going to talk about that for a minute because this just happened in the past couple of weeks in our community, right? New developments going in down the road, and the developer mowed down all the trees, right? And the subsequent neighborhoods around it are like, oh my God. And of course, then I kind of chuckle. I'm like, but your development did the exact same thing before you were here. So, it's kind of what, and it's just like, come on now, it happens, right?
Yeah.
So that.
And the land was for sale for 2 years and, nobody bought it. Yeah.
Right. Well, so that particular development that just started cutting down trees that everybody's probably aware of in the community for the past 2 weeks, that was submitted, those plans of that developer were submitted before the moratorium, before the Lake Murray overlay, before the 20-18 plan went into effect. So it's been on the books since earlier in 2021. So it is under all the old regs.
Gotcha.
And what a lot of people don't realize is when a developer submits plans, it goes through a development review process. All of the different areas of the county look at it: stormwater, land development, building codes, the DOT looks at it, addressing, like there's the fire marshal. There's like 8 different areas that look at that plan. And they're like, well, you can't have this here because you have to have a retention pond, or, the backing out of this driveway is going to be too close to this one, So they give feedback to that developer. They go back to the drawing board and make some alterations. So that one particular development that just started, it was originally slated for 202 homes. Then it was 161. Now it landed at 160. Phase 1 is 68 homes. Phase 2 will be the rest of those homes. So, and then with our land development rules that are in place, and it doesn't matter when you submitted plans, a developer can only clear cut 20, residential developer can only clear cut 20 acres at a time.
20 acres at a time.
20 acres at a time.
That would allow them to grade the ground, because you have to cut all the trees in order to grade the terrain in order to build 60 houses.
Right.
And then you can't get away with it.
Right. And what happens is a developer puts in infrastructure. So developer's going to come in, they're going to clear cut those trees, they're going to grade, they're going to put in their roads, they're going to put in all their water and sewer lines. That's all of the infrastructure that goes in. Then they build all the houses. Where that differs from many years ago, a developer would come in, buy a tract of land, would lay out where houses were going to go, but most of them were not on public water and sewer. Most of them, or maybe that came later, or maybe it was just water and they had septic tanks. So there's regulations over the years have changed, even from DHEC. So when some of the older neighborhoods were done 20, 30 years ago, they didn't clear cut. They literally only cleared the area where the house was going to go and the roads of the neighborhood. That was all they did. Developers have found that it's more cost effective
to do it all
in one shot and then replant. So everybody wants to make more money for less work, and that's just the name of the capitalistic society that we live in.
Right.
It is, and that's allowed. That will be allowed forever. There's no plans to change that.
No, we talked about that in the overlay district. It's just so hard to enforce, and it's so hard to enforce is not the right word. It's so hard to get developers to change that thought pattern, because everybody wants to make money. Everybody. I mean, I want to make money in my job. I got the farms, and different things. So like you always want to make money so that you can live, right? And so you can do. And developers are no different. They want to make money. That's the bottom line.
Right.
And so it's a way of thinking. Hey, can we do it this way? I know it's going to cost you more money, but can we do it this way anyway? And they're like, no. So it gets challenging.
On your position, how much input do you have on those boards and those councils on that process from a developer? Because it seems like, oh, let me call Charli, see what she can do. What can you actually really do? Is that a lot of that permits are out of your hand, or do you have to sign off on them? How does that work? In a very condensed way.
Very condensed way. So county council is an oversight for setting policy.
Okay.
So county council only sets policy, staff does all the work. So Charli doesn't sign anything except for resolutions. That's the only thing that Charli signs.
And the resolutions, the
resolutions are like honoring this day to be Police Week, or this week to be Police Week, or Carlos is like a fantabulous person in the community. We're going to give him a resolution to honor him on this day. Those are types of resolutions. Carlos Day.
May 20th. May 20th. We're gonna have a party day on May 20th. You're invited to come over. I'll give you an invitation so you can have.
So as far as like the regular permitting, so if I'm Charli and I want to subdivide my property that I have 3 ways, I get treated as a developer because I'm subdividing my property more than once. Right? Correct. So then I have to abide by all development rules because I'm being looked at as a developer. Yeah. Some people don't understand. They're like, well, I just want to subdivide my land and give some to my grandkids. Well, you're subdividing it more than once. Yes. So the definition of subdivision then goes into subdivision rules. And a lot of people don't understand that. And they think that Charli can change that or Charli can fix that. And I'm like, I can't do that. You have to abide by the same rules as everybody else, kind of a thing. So it's council creates policy, staff enforces the policy.
And the staff, Lexington County staff, the engineer department, all the stuff. One more question regarding developers, I don't know if you got any more, but one that I've heard a lot is, why don't the county, when they negotiate with a developer or they're in the permitting process, they set aside certain amount for improvement on sidewalks or additional road or something that is missing on the county, that, donating a new ambulance, stuff like that. And I know they're paying their taxes already, but that's just a question that I hear a lot.
So there's a lot of red tape behind everything.
It is.
Right. Impact fees. There's been a lot of discussion about impact fees. That is where a developer comes in, you place, they are impacting an area, whether it's roads, schools, et cetera, this is above my head. There's something in the state legislation that says you can only do X, Y, and Z for impact rules. So I know if you have an impact fee, it has to be designated to a particular thing. So the Rock Hill, or I think it was York County, did impact fees that are designated only for schools. So whatever that impact fee is that gets added onto every single new house, whether it's you building a house or me building 200 houses or a developer building 1,000 homes, doesn't really matter. Every new house gets an impact fee.
Do we have that impact fee in Lexington County?
No, we do not. We are looking into it. And in fact, my predecessor had started a study on it. And the way impact fees go, county council just can't come up with an impact fee. We actually have to hire a consultant to do the impact fee study, to then make the recommendations, to then look at creating any kind of an ordinance. And it has to fall in line with state statutes. So when we did hire, and that has to be in the budget, right? Because if you hire a consultant, it has to be in the budget.
Has to pay them.
Right, it's got to get paid for somehow. So when we did do that before in 2018 or 2020, before I was on council, they were looking at the impact fee for the west region of the county.
Just checking that everything.
Yeah, it's still going.
Okay.
Or the whole county. And it was going to be dedicated totally to police and EMS, because apparently we need a new jail, and jails are really expensive. Yeah. And I don't even want to even think about that. That's just like, I hope I'm not on council. Right. That's a whole nother bag of worms right there. Yeah. But my thought is, can we have impact fees to help whether it's roads and or EMS,
Mm-hmm.
because EMS is a huge issue,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of conversations about that lately. So we're starting that process over again. I think we're going to re-engage with that previous consultant that we had, as long as it's in the budget. If we have to wait a year to put it in the next year's budget, but we're going through budgets right now, so we'll see how that shakes out.
So it's in the works.
It's in the works. And then with the roads and infrastructure, the two worlds, we've got county and we have the state DOT. Most of our roads in our community are state-owned roads. They are not county-owned roads. So it's up to the state DOT, which is where the gas tax comes into play and all this other stuff. And the state's like, here, county, we're going to give you a little bit of money, but of this little bit of money we give you, 25% of that has to be on state roads. The rest of it can be on whatever, right? Or whatever roads. So the state gives us money to use on roads, but we have to use a portion of that on state roads, not even county roads. Old Lexington, Amex Ferry, St. Peter's, Wessinger Road, they're all state roads. A lot of the roads feeding to those are state roads, and a lot of people don't realize that. All the dirt roads in the area are county roads, and a lot of the other smaller roads are county roads. So we don't really have a lot of control over a lot of the roads in the area because we don't own them. The county, meaning the county, doesn't own them.
That makes sense.
So it gets even more, I know, and it's just like, it gets even more complicated because, and that's why, like, being on the COG, the Central Midlands Council of Government, and on the transportation subcommittee, we're able to make changes. So one of the things that I helped get started, they were going to do a Highway 76 study.
Okay.
Right? I don't know if you guys have heard about the study that we finally got approved.
Mm-hmm.
You got approved for
the
story,
COG.
so we haven't even seen what's the results.
They haven't even done the study yet.
Started the story.
Right. So,
what's the story for?
So, and this is, and again, it's a long process, right? And a lot of people have no clue the length of time. They're like, why does it take so long? Well, here's why it takes so long. You have the Central Midlands Council of Government. They're making long-range plans for all of our areas, right? So they had put on, the people before I was on it had said, well, we're going to do a study on Highway 76 that was going to take place on the other side of Wessinger Road going into Richland County for 1.7 miles. That would take you through where people get on the peak exit, right? And I'm like, 1.7 miles? The whole of 76 is a problem. You guys are only going to do like 1.7 miles? Are you kidding me? What? And so me and a few other people are like, nah, time out. We need to expand that. And so in one of these meetings, me and a few other folks had got in there and we just started voicing our opinions. And then the mayor of Little Mountain was on and she was like, well, we need to include Little Mountain too because we've got 202 where people get off the interstate.
Yeah.
Correct.
So we were able to get the study expanded. So the Central Midlands Council of Governments approved a $500,000 study to $500,000 worth of a study that goes from the other side of Little Mountain, where Lindler Field Road is, all the way through Chapin, all the way through Richland County, all the way to number 6. Okay. And then it branches out. So from number 6, it will actually take Highway 6 up to the dam, and then it continues on up to 176.
Okay.
Where the Chick-fil-A Valentine debacle is,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And then a little bit beyond that to the interstate. 1.7 miles to now all of that we got done.
And that study is in order to try to expand that road?
It depends. So that study will start, I think it's supposed to start by the end of the year, in the fall. And they've got like a year to do it. So this is the government red tape. It takes forever to do all of this stuff, right? So it's going to take like a year to do the study. And from that study will come out, well, we need a light here. We need to widen this area here. We need a turning lane here. We need turning arrows here. So all of those things that can help traffic move.
I'm a big fan of traffic circles. Let me tell you, right off the
I
bat.
know, right?
I love
They're
them.
so much fun.
They're
When people know what they're doing, I feel like we need to be able to send out a YouTube video to each person to drive through them.
Sometimes I just go around them.
You can see so many personalities when they're in the traffic circle. You see the one that is like with their eyes. Oh my God!
I don't know what to do.
And
And then
then
the rest of us are like,
And
turn
then the
left.
other one, I have exactly 5 inches, so I got enough place to run in it. I love, but
Go.
the one, let me tell you, the one that they put here in More Lindler, it had all sort of naysayers saying that it was gonna be bad. You know what was bad? Those stop signs in
Yes.
there before, you know?
Yes.
They
So-
missed a great opportunity.
So
at the
on the
crossroads.
to-do list is we got calls coming in and stuff going on. One of the to-do list traffic circles is the Wessinger Old Lexington
That's
intersection
what
as
I was
well.
talking about. That was
Yes.
like they missed a great opportunity.
Yes, so that is on the
at
list.
same time. That's awesome.
That's one of the ones that I was just like, hey, can we please get this done? They're like, oh, it's on the list. And I'm like, oh, but when?
I
Is it gonna
wonder
get
if this
done?
one here in Chapin and Amis Ferry Road will work magic, because it's,
Yeah, I don't know how they would do that.
It
you
is.
do a two-lane traffic circle. I mean, I've seen traffic
There's
circles.
one near Ascot.
There's one in India that is like 7 lanes. And you
Oh,
know who's
really?
wild people driving in India?
Yeah.
Man, they drive like crazy. And if they can handle a 6-lane traffic circle,
You think we
pretty
can?
sure we can handle a
Shall
2-lane.
see.
Yeah, and then there's the railroad right there too.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother government body that we can't even touch.
Oh, that's right.
And the railroad has a 100-foot buffer. I believe it's on each side. Now, here there's not 100 feet, but that was all grandfathered in. I feel like
Yeah.
a million years ago. So I think railroads have 100 feet of a buffer, like an interstate.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 100 feet total. It's 50 on each side.
I'm very
Yeah.
curious about that study, what's gonna come down.
I am too.
The people that you hired to do the story has had some success, I guess,
It's,
in improving traffic
it
on
is
other places.
The SCDOT and it's whatever government in the COG is the one that actually will be hiring this consultant. And I know one of the consultants I work with is out of Charlotte. And of course I'm like, why can't we use local people instead of Charlotte?
right.
You know, but, I'm
Well,
not on
Charlotte-
the executive
Charlotte-
committee of that.
But
So.
Charlotte is not a bad place, because Charlotte is
It's grown.
Yes.
yeah.
They've had a lot of
grew
growing
a lot,
pains.
so I'm
so.
guessing that they got some experience,
Yeah.
on how to handle it better.
Yeah.
And I hope that happens here, because we all know that traffic has changed
What?
a little bit in the last years.
Traffic?
Yeah, I don't ride my
No traffic
motorcycle
here.
nearly as much as I used to because I feel like it's
Charlie,
not very
before I
safe.
forget, you're talking about the COG, and you mentioned that there's going to be some boards. You mentioned off camera that there's
Yes.
going to be some boards available, and I just think that this is a great opportunity for a lot of people that have great
Yes.
ideas.
And I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget.
Awesome. Can we go through it? And I think it's gonna be the second part. I think that we're ready on the
Yeah, if you
second
wanna
part.
do
We're gonna
part
do
two.
two. Yeah, we're going to do 2 parts, and I'm gonna figure it out how to
Yeah.
edit it. But
Okay.
this is
Yeah.
very, very interesting.
Well, and it's good information too that I think a lot of people should be aware of.
Absolutely.
So, County Council has a number of different boards and commissions that we ask citizens to volunteer for, right? So the COG is one, and you have to have some government entities appointed on the COG, Central Midlands Council of Governments, but you also have regular citizens that are appointed on it. So I have one lady that lives down in Amex Ferry Road who's a citizen appointee, and we have one more position available for a citizen appointee, and that's appointed at large throughout the whole county. So it doesn't have to be anybody from our area. It can be somebody from the other side of the lake or Swansea if they wanted to be on it. But we do have one more position available on the COG, and you have to, it's good if you have some kind of a prior knowledge of how the road system works. So like if you have worked with the DOT before on putting in a driveway or working with them on any kind of road expansion, it's just more knowledge to your hat. If you have no knowledge of it, it's very overwhelming. And it just takes a lot of studying to get up to speed on that. So we have one open position there.
Are those paid positions, or they're all
Nope.
volunteer?
All volunteer. So we have the Planning Commission, which there aren't any openings on that right now. In the Planning Commission, anytime we make any ordinance changes, like the Lake Marie overlay, and the 20-18 ordinance, and some of the map amendments and different things we've done, it all goes to the Planning Commission first for them to give us feedback on it, because they are appointees. So it's like another level of opinion, basically. And some folks on the Planning Commission are developers, some of them are just community advocates, some of them are just regular people that have an interest in that area. So there's the Planning Commission, there's the Board of Zoning Appeals, which one of our local neighborhoods went to with some of the Lake Murray overlay issues. They wanted to have some lots that were smaller than a half acre. So they went to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Board of Zoning Appeals, that's where they look at things on a case-by-case basis.
Gotcha.
And they can make recommendations or changes or say, yes, this appeal is accepted. You don't have to abide by this. You can do this kind of a thing. So when you hear conversations of, well, why can't you just look at this on a case-by-case basis? Well, that's the Board of Zoning Appeals. That's what their job is to look at something on a case-by-case basis. So if there's something that doesn't fit the ordinances or rules or whatnot, they can get a second opinion, basically.
Yeah, get a second opinion there.
That's their case-by-case.
So how does somebody apply for that job?
So they would contact me, and I would give them all the information. Contact me.
Because you need more people
That's
calling
what
you,
you
right?
need.
Don't contact me.
More phone calls. Now you have people complaining and people
I
applying
prefer
for
email.
jobs.
I'm so much more of an emailer or a texter. I hate the phone. Yeah, so we have openings on the Record Rotation Board. What is that, you may ask?
Yeah.
I'm
Never
not
heard of that.
completely sure what the Record Rotation Board is. I'm going to sound very naive to that. But my understanding of the Record Rotation Board is there's a group of wreckers that are on call throughout the county for county things, for people parking in the wrong place, but it's a group of wreckers that get together to help decide fees. So if they have to take off a drive shaft to put your car on something, which I've heard of happening, but not in recent years, there's a charge. There's a charge for that, right? So this Record Rotation Board helps set charges of people, services involving getting towed. So there's a board. It's not just one person up there deciding, oh, we're going to charge $150 for this or $25 for this. It's a board that sets those fees. So there's that. We have one position on that. So if you know of anybody in the record community with a tow truck that wants to, Lexington County, that wants to be a part of that, we have one position available for that. Stormwater Advisory Board. That's a whole nother world.
Yeah, that sounds like you could be stepping into some deep water with that.
Yes, exactly. So Stormwater Advisory Board works with our community development department, and right now their project is working on land development code, right? So Stormwater Advisory, again, there's an area down on Lexington Highway. It's a low area. Every time it rains, people's front yards are full of water. Stormwater Advisory Board can look at that. Is this something that the DOT can help us with bigger culverts? Or what can we do? Are there any rules and regulations we can put in place to help prevent stormwater flooding from whatever, right? The other part of that is, you guys know what kind of dirt we have on this side of the lake, right?
Yeah.
It's that clay. It doesn't
Not
drain.
draining dirt.
Right, it just doesn't drain.
Yeah.
Well, you cross the lake and you go to the sandy country.
Yeah.
They have different problems, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things with the Stormwater Advisory Board that we've got, there are some engineers, like PE certified engineers. There are just regular citizens that have an interest in this that are appointed. They get together and they talk about all these things, and they help make recommendations for staff for rules and regulations that go into play. One of the things that we've looked at is the different types of soil should be taken into consideration. Right. So what looks good for sandy soil is not going to work good for red clay. Because you guys know, when this red clay gets dried out, it's cement. Yep. You know, and when it's wet, it's slippery cement.
I know. I play infield on my church league softball, and tell you that.
We had to rent an auger to landscape our yard.
Yeah. And you know, in my property where I am, we don't have red clay. I have white clay.
Oh.
After you know the first 6 or 8 inches,
that's even worse.
It's even worse. But you know, I could probably dig it up and sell it for pottery if I really wanted to. I'm not going there. So Stormwater Advisory Board, we do have some openings on that. The biggest one that we have openings on, we've got like 4 or 5 openings in this particular board. It's the Workforce Development Board. Workforce Development Board works with, there is the, I'm cheating here, it is the Workforce Innovative Opportunity Act of 2015. And it's a workforce development board. They look for people in the private sector that are small business owners or larger business owners, and they also have opening for somebody in a government position to be on that workforce development board.
And what do they do?
So they help look at all the different areas that we need a workforce in. So
that you need labor
that we need
workforce.
any kind of workforce. So I'm gonna digress a minute. I'm gonna put on my educator hat for a second, and
go ahead.
And I'm in higher education, so I'm in a 4-year higher education. I'm going to specify that, right? So we want everybody to go to college and get a college degree, right? But not everybody's built to go to college to get a college degree.
Yeah.
So therefore, we have technical schools that have trade laborers and skills that we need. We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need all of that, and you don't have to have a 4-year degree to get it, right? So the Workforce Development Board works with education facilities and institutions of what do we need? What do we need and how do we get that?
Okay.
Right? So, and workforce development also plays into economic development, because if I am, so I'm on economic development for Lexington County. I'm vice chair this year, which I wasn't even on it last year.
So that's an
I'm
additional board that you're part of.
Yeah, so we have committees.
Council member, and then you're part of also
Yes,
several
so-
boards, just because you have so much free time.
I
and,
do.
Yeah,
I have so
right?
much free time. I've
Yeah.
got it down to about 6 hours of sleep a night. If I could just get it down to 3 hours of sleep, I could do so much more.
Yeah.
So all council members have to serve on committees, and then they have to serve on certain boards as well. So we get the.
Oh, it's required.
It's required that
Okay.
we
Okay.
have our hands in certain things and just be an active participant in certain things.
How many council members are right now? Pardon my
9.
ignorance. 9.
9.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have 9 council members across Lexington County. And with the 2020 census, we actually grew enough that we could have added on a whole nother district, but instead we just redistricted
Okay.
and kept it with the 9.
Gerrymandering, they call it.
That's gerrymandering, that's right. There we go. Terrible. That's why I lost the Lexington side. Now I got more of Irmo, and I'm like, yay, just not Harbison Boulevard, please. Just joking. Joking.
Shots fired.
No, Harbison Boulevard's got some challenges, and I do have Harbison Boulevard South. So I've got Quail Valley and all of that. So there are some challenges with the jurisdiction in that area, because we got City of Columbia, Richland County, and Lexington County.
A lot of overlapping.
That's a whole new episode. Let's talk about Harbison.
Yes, a whole other area, some things we're working on. But the Midlands Workforce Development kind of looks at the whole thing. So from an economic development standpoint, if we're trying to recruit businesses to come into Lexington County, and those businesses are what keep our residential taxes lower, because the businesses pay more taxes, right? As you guys know, businesses pay more taxes than residential. So in order to keep residential taxes lower, we want to recruit more businesses. But we have to have a workforce to supply to those businesses. And if it's all manufacturing, or if it's all this, but we push our kids to go to college to get that 4-year degree, when they get their biology degree, or they get their psychology degree, or their theater degree that I had, they don't want to work in a manufacturing plant.
So that's the government trying to marry education with private companies.
It's trying to, I wouldn't say marry it, because marriage is a really big commitment.
Dating. You try to.
I was dating. Right. They try to make it where the workforce development says, we need these folks in this profession. How can we help recruit young students into this profession?
Marketing, incentives,
right, exactly.
Tax breaks. I see.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So it's a big, huge thing.
Yeah.
And like even, with the paramedics, that's a hot topic, right? So if we look at workforce development with paramedics, nobody wants to be a paramedic. It's a high stress job. It's a gross job. There are some people that want to do that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
My brother is, by the way.
Right.
Yeah,
It's just like, it takes a special kind of person to deal with that high stress, high trauma, high distress is really the only way to put it. On a regular basis. Most of the rest of us are like, body fluids, people sick, don't want anything to do with it. It's a very tough job. And then people are like, if you pay the paramedics more, and I'm like, but if they're doing it to make money, they're not doing it for the right reasons.
Correct.
Money helps.
Yeah.
It will definitely help keep people in those fields longer. But then, of course, moving a 300-pound person, you're going to hurt your back.
Yeah.
So then there's also, it's a high stress, high turnover, short-lived career, really.
It is.
But a workforce development, how can we get more people involved in a particular industry? Like, how can we get more people involved in wanting to be a paramedic?
That's a very interesting position, and that position is open right now.
Yeah.
Oh, you think I should apply?
Yeah, you're good
Maybe
with
so, you
workforce.
never
Huh?
know.
Yes.
She has 3 kids, so
Yes,
you know
yes.
about workforce.
I
right
need to put them
there.
to
We
work.
have 3 open positions. One's a government, 2 are private business sectors in workforce development.
Okay, so
And they meet annually. No, I'm sorry, I'm lying. They meet quarterly.
and again, those are voluntary positions.
They're all
Okay.
volunteer.
Good to know. Well,
Yeah,
and you will be running next year. You said again. You don't know yet.
I'm
You
gonna
are,
I'm
you
gonna
know?
run for a second term.
All right, so I
Yes.
guess that if you like what you see, you like what you hear, you get some of those ideas behind you, continuation of the projects that you started. Obviously, there's never going to be a solution for everybody.
No.
Some people are
No.
going to like it, some people are not going to like it. Like you said, at the end of the day, I think it's all in the big picture.
It is
What you
big
want to
picture,
get.
and it's planning. So the things that we're putting in place today
Mm-hmm.
are planning for the next 20 to 25 to 30 years. Again, that can all be pros or cons, like what we've already discussed with the 5-laning of certain roads and before others. That I think is a huge con. Why would you 5-lane a road over here before you expand this road? And yeah, we're gonna have to do 2 segments.
we will. We are going to the two segments.
But yeah, so there's a lot involved with all of that. But when we talk about economic development and workforce development and all of those things affecting the county, so the county buys property to have business parks. As we know that there's one right down the road that was probably not the best deal that the county could have made, or the council at that time maybe shouldn't have made. But then again, you would never know what it's going to land in the future.
Right.
But we do have that as a potential. So one of the things that we're looking at right now are where else in the county can we look to expand that for 20 years from now, right? And another one is nobody wants to have a waste collection station next to them, right? Okay, the dump. I'm not supposed to even call it the dump, right? Can't call it that. So our Chapin, right? Our Chapin Waste Collection Station Recycling Center actually has 12 acres. So we're going to expand that, by the way, just to accommodate more.
We need it
because we need it, so we can get the cars off of Westwood.
It's growing,
right?
It's growing pains, right? That's what it's
So
called.
yeah, and so other areas of the county there aren't any rooms to expand. So Lexington County has to think about where we're going to be in 10 years, where we're going to be in 20 years, and how are we going to serve our citizens to the best in 10 or 20 years from now. So a lot of the decisions we're making today, hopefully for the better. We've got a really good group right now on council, a really good group. Some forward thinkers that are not part of the previous good old boy network. And I hate to say it like that, but
it is what it is.
We still have a lot of the good old boy network in South Carolina. It's alive and well.
Well, we've got to work with everybody.
Well,
right?
we have to work with everybody. So we have
and
to.
I think that at the end of the day, everybody wants the same thing.
Right,
Everybody wants this town to be a great place to live in.
Right. Exactly. We want it to be a great place to live in. We want everybody to prosper. We want people to be happy and healthy. We want all of those good things.
Yeah.
For sure.
And we all aiming for that.
Right.
We all rooting for you.
Thank you.
We all rooting for things to be done the right way. So 10 years from now, we can look at this video.
10 years from now, I will not be on council.
Oh, we'll see. 4 years ago, you said you will never be in council. All right, well, thank you very much, Charli. I have a feeling that we will see you again, that we will have you again to talk about, whatever comes up.
Whatever's coming up.
Thank you so much for your time. I know that you have a very, very, very tight agenda, very limited time, so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
That was good.
That was good. That was a lot of information, Allison.
It was. I really need to go back and listen to it actually again. Just to kind of absorb all of it.
Yeah, because there were a couple things that I probably need to re-listen to. One of the things that stick on my mind, that there were 3 openings right now.
Yeah, 3 boards in the county that have openings.
Do you remember those?
I have a cheat sheet. I had to have a cheat sheet. So if you were intrigued by what you heard and want to get involved in local government, there are 3 boards with openings available. And that's available to the public. You don't have to have prior experience in politics or government that type of thing. So the first one is the Wrecker Rotation Board, which I had no idea they had this, but it's actually to help set the pricing for like towing vehicles that may be parked illegally. So if that interests you, you can be a part of the Wrecker Rotation Board.
The second one, we have the Stormwater Advisory Board.
Yes.
Right? So that basically...
Water runoff.
Which
is a big issue with all the development going on.
Yeah, and she's playing on that. And the third one, it'll be...
Workforce development.
That's the one I'm very interested in.
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
Yeah.
We need a stronger workforce around here, and that's just looking at what are the needs and how to satisfy those needs.
One thing I noticed about that conversation with Charli, it does seem that the government is growing a lot.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
I think it's inevitable, just like growth everywhere else.
Yeah, and you listen all the time. You know, well, the government is just growing too much. There's a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger growing. That's kind of one of like talking points that you have out there, and you know when you talk to people like Charli, you start to understand. Well, either they grow or it gets out of control, right? So what would you do? You know, how can you, I mean, population is growing. Population here in Chapin and here in Lexington County is growing.
Absolutely.
So if you don't grow the government.
To help control the growth.
And
responsible growth.
Correct. Then what happens, right? So it's a catch-22.
It is a catch-22.
Talking about catch-22, are you hungry?
Yes.
Let's go eat. Let's go ahead and catch-22. Hope you enjoyed. I know that we had a longer interview than before, so we're going to wrap it up quick.
Yep.
Allison is going to count to 100 in Spanish, and then the show will be over.
No. Show's just over.
You're not going to count? Bye.